how do you plan a working holiday in Australia? This guide will run through all the steps that you need to go through before and during your working holiday. I'm Lisa from Australian travel and migration blog dreamingofdownunder.com, and I've travelled Australia multiple times, including on a working holiday. So I've put together all the information that you need to know to make the most out of your year in Australia. If you want to go through this again more thoroughly, I've got a whole blog post on this, so I'll link to that below. You can also download my free working holiday checklist. Step number 1 is to make sure that you're eligible for a working holiday visa in Australia. I do have a whole blog post on the eligibility criteria, so I'll link to that below as well. But in general, you need to be between 18 to 30. You can be up to 35 if you're from specific countries. You need to have a passport from one of a list of specific countries, and you need to have around $5,000 to support yourself when you get here. Read up on this on the government website as well, just to make sure, because there is some other criteria. There's also a very similar visa called the Work and Holiday Visa from people from another subset of countries. Number 2 is to check that your passport is valid for the whole length of your stay in Australia before you apply for the visa, because if you do get a new passport, you will have to let the Australian government know if you've already applied for your visa. You need to be careful with this, because when I came here as a permanent resident, I went back to the UK for a visit, and then when I tried to come back here because I'd got a new passport, my visa wasn't on that passport. I thought it would kind of automatically transfer onto it because it's an electronic visa, but no, so you do need to be careful about that. So if you're eligible and your passport is valid, then go ahead and apply for your visa. Number 3 is to buy your flights and travel insurance. I generally use Skyscanner to begin looking for flights and compare the cheapest flights, and make sure you get travel insurance that's valid for the whole length of your trip, and make sure it's valid for any personal belongings that you really want to be insured. They don't always cover things like laptops. You need to check their details, and make sure if you're going to be doing any particular activities on your time abroad, make sure it covers those as well. Number 4 is to make sure you're up to date on any routine medical examinations that you need, or any vaccines. So if you need to go to the dentist or the optometrist before you leave, make sure you're up to date on those, just in case you can't go when you're travelling. And obviously check the COVID situation in Australia, and whether you need to be vaccinated or have a vaccine passport or anything like that to go to any countries that you're visiting. You might be visiting other countries on the way to Australia. And every state in Australia does have different rules as well, so make sure you check for the ones that you'll be entering. Number 5 is to make copies of any important documents, so things like your passport, your travel insurance policies. It's important to get copies of those, and I would keep an electronic copy, and I would also keep a paper hard copy on you as well. Also, probably keep a copy of your driving licence just in case, and if you've got insurance covering any kind of electronic gadgets like laptops or phones, make sure you've got the purchase receipt for those, because if you do lose them, you'll need your receipt when you claim. I managed to drop my mobile phone down a long drop compost toilet when I was travelling Australia and I had no idea where the receipt was. It was quite a cheap one. I got a cheap one for travelling, thankfully, but yeah, I didn't get anything back for that. Number 6 is to make sure that you get your mobile phone unlocked, because if you just put another SIM card in there for another network, it might not necessarily work if your phone is locked. And then I would also just look into which Australian mobile phone provider that you're going to go with, because you will want to get a SIM card, an Australian SIM card when you get here if you're spending a year here. So there's a few networks, generally Telstra, Optus and Vodafone are the big ones. I'm with Optus. That's not very good actually when you're travelling. If you're going to rural areas, Telstra is better. My travel mate had Telstra and he had much better reception than me in pretty much all of the really rural areas. So I would probably say Telstra is best if you're planning on doing some road trips. Number 7 is to exchange some cash, so you've got a little bit on you when you come over to Australia. And then I would also look into bank accounts and maybe choose one that you will open when you get to Australia. Things to be careful of are whether they charge fees if you don't pay a set amount into the account every month. So if you're going to be travelling and not working for the whole time, you really want one that doesn't have any fees. So when I came here, I opened an account with Citibank just because that didn't have any fees, and I now have one with my state bank, which is kind of Queensland Bank, but I can still use different ATMs everywhere, just because that had a savings account with a good interest rate. I would open an account with a bank within 6 weeks of arriving in Australia, because there is some kind of strange rule that after that 6 weeks you have to show more forms of ID than you do during that first 6 weeks apparently. Number 8 is to transfer money to your Australian account. So if you want to move money from your home country into your Australian bank account, then you need to do some research on how to move foreign currency. Don't just go with your bank because they can charge a lot of fees, so we'll do some research. I personally use Wise, which used to be called TransferWise. I've always found them to be quite cheap. I'll leave a link to them below. Also, if you might want to withdraw cash from your home bank account, make sure that you tell your bank that you're going to be abroad, because sometimes if you suddenly use your card in another country, they will freeze your account in case it's fraudulent. And just make sure that you always have more than one way of accessing money when you first arrive here, so don't just come and have one ATM card just for your home account and nothing else, because if you lose that you could be completely stuck with no cash. I had that situation once in South America when my card got cloned and somebody wiped my account and I only had one way of accessing money, and thankfully I was with a couple of friends, so between us we worked it all out. Number 9 is to join backpacker Facebook groups in Australia. These are really, really useful. There's different groups for each state depending where you're going to be. And you can just find people for road trips, you can find buddies. It's just a really, really useful way of contacting other backpackers. If you'll be staying in hostels, you'll meet people obviously, but it's really nice just to find people who might want to do the same things as you, or if you want to find a short-term apartment to rent or something, people sometimes advertise them on those. I've got links in my blog post actually to all the different Facebook groups that you can join. Number 10 is to look into what types of accommodation you might want to stay in, and definitely I would book your first week for when you get here. Australia is really, really big on hostels and they're generally pretty good condition. They tend to cost between about $25 to $35 a night on average, but there are lots of other types of places you can stay. I've got a whole blog post on this with 10 different types of cheap accommodation. I'll link to that below. Some of your options are Airbnb, so you can actually rent a spare room in somebody's home and sort of live with somebody in their home. The price is between a hostel and a hotel, so it's nowhere near as expensive as a hotel, but it's a little bit more than a hostel, but you will get a private room. So if you really don't want to stay in dorms in a hostel, that could be a good option for you. You can also go camping, so they've got absolutely loads of camping sites in national parks, as well as like the big holiday parks where you can go in your camper van or caravan, and that's all around the whole coastline of Australia as well as inland. So if you want to do any road trips, you don't have to stay in hostels, you can camp. That's really, really common. It's actually common for Australians who retire to go and do big trips in buses around the edge of Australia when they retire. If you would rather not be in a hostel, or you're going to spend like a good few months in a city maybe working and you don't want to live in a hostel, there are lots and lots of share houses, so you can find these on flatmates.com.au, you can look on Gumtree, you can just ask around in the hostels and see if anyone knows of anywhere. So it's quite common to move into a share house. Sometimes people set these up for backpackers and you'll have kind of bunk beds like in the bedroom, so it's almost like a little dormitory, or you can have a private room. So for a private room, you'd, depending on where you're staying, I would say between like $200 to $300 a week. I mean, maybe there are cheaper ones kind of in cheaper cities or outside the cities, but in Sydney definitely you'd be looking at kind of $300 to $350 a week, but that is the most expensive city. So if you want a private room in a share house, you can do those for a few months. So my best tip for getting cheap travel accommodation is house sitting. I started doing that when I came to Australia. I stayed in hostels and then I went in a flat share for a couple of months and I got a bit sick of it, and then I started house sitting. So if you look after somebody's pets while they're on holiday, you can live in their home for free. I'll link to my recommended websites below, but I actually do that in Sydney even now, years and years later. I did it for 3.5 years in Sydney and I even got paid for it, and I explored the city that way. So I lived all over Sydney from top to bottom in loads of like luxury homes. It was amazing. And I still do that now. I'm doing it for this next year to save a bit more money. Number 11 is to get a tax file number. This is absolutely crucial if you're going to be working in Australia. So it's the equivalent of your national insurance number in the UK. So if you just Google that and go onto the government website and apply, and they can send that to you. Number 12 is to get a Medicare card if you're eligible. Medicare is the Australian healthcare system, the public healthcare system, and it does have a reciprocal healthcare agreement with people from certain countries, so you need to look into this. I've got a whole blog post on it and a video, so I'll link to those below. If you are eligible, then apply for that card because you will have access to some healthcare things for free, or you will at least get rebates towards the fees if you need to see a doctor. Also, if you get a Medicare card, that can be used as a form of ID, so it's really useful to have if you're eligible. Number 13 is to look into any jobs that you might be interested in Australia, and maybe look at typical wages for that type of work, and just look at your budget and work out, you know, how much of the year you might need to work for, how much you think it's going to cost. I've got a whole big blog post on the cost of backpacking in Australia and the cost for all the different types of things like food and accommodation and trips and things like that. So I'll link to that below. Have a look at that and just sort of start budgeting. Number 14 is to find regional work for your second year visa if this is something that you might want to do. So obviously you will do this once you're in Australia, but I would say just don't leave it right till the end, because if you don't like, or actually if you can't find somewhere in time, you're going to end up not being able to get it, and if you start work somewhere and you really don't like it, you won't have time to leave there and find another job if that's what you want to do, if you've left it right to the end. The guy that I travelled with when I was travelling in Australia, he did his farm work and he left it really, really late, and he absolutely hated the farm. He ended up with this guy that was basically just a bully, and very, very luckily he managed to find another job, but he had to fly. He had to go from Tasmania all the way up to far north Queensland and then inland, like hours and hours and hours. He just managed to do it, but yeah, I would really give yourself some time for that. Number 15 is to organise some road trips in Australia. Make sure that you don't just get stuck living in a city and working for the whole time. I met quite a few people who, well, not on my working holiday, that was a long time ago, but on my more recent road trip, a lot of people come here, just work full time and then get comfortable and end up just living in one city for 6 or 9 months. But make sure you see the country, do some planning on where you want to see. Australia is absolutely huge, so make sure you allow enough time for that. Look into the weather as well when you're planning your trips, because Australia has very different climates because it's such a big country. So the north of the country is generally much hotter than the south, and you also get a wet season up in the north. So personally, I would avoid the north in the summer and I would stick down to the south coast, and then maybe go up north for the winter when it's a bit drier and the temperature's not quite so extreme. I've got loads and loads of drive itineraries and destination guides on my blog, so make sure you check those out. I'll link below. There are lots and lots of ways to travel Australia. You can buy a car or you can buy a camper van. You can get these secondhand from other backpackers, which will include all your camping gear. You can hire a camper van or a car. You can find a travel mate who's bought a car and be their buddy and just pay them petrol. That's probably the cheapest way, because you're not responsible for paying for any of the things that can go wrong with cars, which cost loads. You can do bus tours, join tour groups. You can just get public coaches. There are trains. There are absolutely loads of ways to travel Australia. But when you get here, if you do stay in hostels, which I'd recommend, you'll meet other backpackers and you'll make friends, and with those Facebook groups as well, you should have no trouble finding people to travel with. Number 16 is to buy a car in Australia if you decide that you want to do self-driven road trips and you really want to drive yourself, and you need to start looking into a car at some point when you're here. So it's very common to buy cars off other backpackers, and they'll include all the camping gear. I would say be really careful, because cars, it costs a lot to get car parts repaired, and I do find that backpackers maybe don't want to spend money on the car because they're not keeping it long term. So you might, actually I made this mistake when I first moved here, you can buy a car and find out it needs absolutely thousands of dollars of work and it's not even worth getting it done because the car's so old. So you need to be really careful. It's better to buy a car that you know is in a good state, and then buy camping gear, because you can get camping gear really cheaply from like cheap shops like Kmart here, or your kind of camping stoves and things. And it's not like it's a freezing country where you need proper thermal stuff. You just need a thin sleeping bag. But if you do want to buy a car, so you can look on the Facebook backpacker groups. You can also look on Gumtree. And you can go to car yards to get second-hand cars, and just local newspapers as well. Just be really careful, because each state in Australia, each state and territory has like their own type of number plates. So if somebody is selling a car in a state and that car's got a different state on, so say you're looking in WA and someone wants to sell a car that's got a New South Wales plate on, they shouldn't really be selling it in a different state, and you will have to get the plates changed, and it can need an exam. So I had this with the very first car I bought when I got here. It had to have an exam to get Western Australia plates put on, and it failed, and it had so much wrong with it, it wasn't worth paying it because the cost of that would have been more than the car was even worth. So I lost all my money on that. I had to buy another car. It was such a bad mistake to make, so don't do that. You can pay a mechanic to actually look over a car when you buy it, so I would recommend getting that done. It might be worth that extra bit of expenditure to save you thousands. Actually, I think the site that I bought my most recent car on was carsales.com.au. But good luck with that. If you do have a car, you just have so much freedom. You can stop everywhere you want. You can sleep at campsites on your road trips, which saves you money. It's just so much freedom. You know, you're not on a time scale like with the tours. So if you're brave enough to drive around Australia, then do go and buy a car. Number 17 is to make friends on your working holiday. It's actually really easy to make friends when you're travelling. If you haven't done it before, it can be a bit nerve-wracking and you might think you'll be lonely. But honestly, if you stay in hostels, you'll meet loads of other backpackers. Most people do start out travelling by themselves, so most people are actively looking to make friends, and it is a real kind of community when you're travelling with people who just are open and willing to speak to other people and make friends from different countries. So you'll meet people in hostels. You can use those Facebook groups I told you about. Also, meetup.com is quite a good website. I use that when I moved to Sydney to make friends. So people start groups depending on whatever activities they're interested in, and then they just post events. So people might post a hike they're going on or a bar crawl or whatever you're interested in. So I would take a look at that. And definitely don't worry about travelling alone. Don't wait for someone to be ready to travel with you. You can end up waiting forever. Just go on your trip and bite the bullet and you'll have a wonderful time. Number 18 is to make sure that you do your Australian tax return towards the end of your year. So the Australian tax year ends at the end of June each year. So if you have been working and paying tax, make sure that you do a tax return because you may have overpaid and you may be due a refund. So to look into backpacker tax, you should look on the ATO website. That's the Australian Taxation Office. Number 19 is to make sure that you claim back your superannuation. So this is basically when you're working, your employer is obliged by law to put a certain amount of money into a pension fund, so like a retirement fund for you basically. So when you've finished your year here, you can claim that back. It is taxed, unfortunately, at quite a high rate, but make sure you look into claiming that. And number 20 is just to have an absolutely brilliant time. I've travelled almost the whole coastline of Australia on lots of different trips, and it's an amazing country to travel. It's absolutely beautiful. The scenery is astounding. A lot of the country has great weather, lots of sunshine, and it's just so much fun. It's a fairly safe country. It's very, very easy to travel. It's very popular with backpackers, so everything is made easy. There's just lots and lots of choice, lots of other travellers here. And now that our borders are finally open after about 2 years because of COVID, it's finally free to come here, so just come here and have an absolutely brilliant time. Let me know in the comments if you're planning on coming to Australia on a trip, or if you're going to be doing a working holiday, and which places you're really excited about seeing. And if you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe for more videos on life and travel in Australia. Thanks for watching.